Hello, today we do the sole. I'm Dr. Gaurav, and there are four layers in sole. The diagram now is showing the muscles of first layer of sole, and the first muscle is abductor hallucis, the second muscle is flexor digitorum brevis, while the third muscle is abductor digiti minimi. Now what do we make out from this diagram? That the first layer is the layer of abductors of the big and small toes. So if you remember this, that the first layer is the layer of abductors of big and small toe, then you will be able to make out that this layer has got the muscles abductor hallucis, which abducts the thumb, and abductor digiti minimi, which abducts the small toe. So first layer is the layer of abductors of the big and small toes. So it consists of abductor hallucis and abductor digiti minimi. Along with it, it also contains another muscle, that is the flexor digitorum brevis. So this is the second muscle of first layer, flexor digitorum brevis. So once again I repeat, first layer is the layer of abductors of big and small toe. So the muscles are abductor hallucis and abductor digiti minimi, and then the first layer also contains flexor digitorum brevis. Now let us do these muscles one by one. So first is abductor hallucis. It rises from medial tubercle of calcaneum, and it gets inserted onto the lateral side of base of proximal phalanx of big toe. So that is why when it will contract, it will cause abduction of the big toe. So it is abductor hallucis. The second muscle is flexor digitorum brevis. This muscle lies deep to the plantar aponeurosis, and this also arises like abductor hallucis from the medial tubercle of calcaneum, and it divides into four tendons for the lateral four digits. Near the proximal phalanx, the tendon divides into two slips, and these slips then get inserted onto the margins of the middle phalanx of the digit concerned. So when the tendon divides into two slips, between the two slips what passes is the tendon of flexor digitorum longus. And this muscle, flexor digitorum brevis, it is responsible for flexion of the metatarsophalangeal joint and the proximal interphalangeal joint of the digit concerned. So first layer of sole has got three muscles: abductor hallucis, flexor digitorum brevis, and abductor digiti minimi. And in synopsis we can say first layer is the layer of abductors of big toe and small toe, and it also contains flexor digitorum brevis muscle. So now we come to the muscles of the second layer of sole. Second layer of sole has got the different muscles: flexor hallucis longus, flexor digitorum longus, lumbricals, and flexor digitorum accessorius. Now students, you can remember it like this, that the second layer is the layer of flexor, long flexors for the toes. So it has got flexor hallucis longus and flexor digitorum longus. So these are the muscles of the posterior compartment of the leg. Their tendons are now coming into the foot and they cross each other. We have done this before. So second layer of sole has got the long flexor tendons. So it consists of flexor hallucis longus and the tendon of flexor digitorum longus, which splits into four parts. It has also got the flexor digitorum accessorius muscle, which is accessory to the flexor digitorum longus muscle in action, and it has also got lumbricals, which are numbered from medial to lateral side. So first lumbrical, second lumbrical, third lumbrical, and fourth lumbrical. Now we will do these muscles one by one. Let us start with flexor hallucis longus. So flexor hallucis longus arises from the posterior surface of, it is coming to the medial side, so it is arising from the posterior surface of tibia. It is arising from the posterior surface of fibula, and when it comes towards the medial side by crossing. So this muscle gets inserted onto the uh, plantar aspect of the distal phalanx of the big toe. So then flexor digitorum longus, it is coming from the posterior surface of tibia. It crosses the flexor hallucis longus tendon in the foot and comes towards the lateral side, and this muscle divides into 4 tendons, and each tendon gets inserted into the distal phalanx of the digit concerned. So these two muscles, they cause flexion of the concerned toes. Then we have the flexor digitorum accessorius, which has got 2 heads of origin. So these two unite at an acute angle to form the main belly of the muscle, and this muscle is getting inserted onto the lateral aspect of the tendon of flexor digitorum longus. And this muscle is accessory to the action of flexor digitorum longus. So what it will cause is the same action as which is done by the flexor digitorum longus tendons. Then we have the lumbricals. So first lumbrical arises from the medial aspect of the first tendon of flexor digitorum longus. Second lumbricus arises from the adjacent sides of the first and second tendon. Third lumbrical arises from the adjacent sides of the second and third tendon of flexor digitorum longus, while the fourth lumbrical arises from the adjacent sides of third and fourth tendon of flexor digitorum longus. Each lumbrical comes to the medial side of the metatarsophalangeal joint and gets inserted onto the proximal phalanx and on the medial aspect, and it also gets inserted onto the extensor expansion. So what is the function of these lumbricals? They help in maintenance of extension of the interphalangeal joints, so that in walking and running the toes do not buckle under, which means that while walking and running the extension of the interphalangeal joints is maintained by the lumbricals, so that the toes, they do not buckle under, they remain extended at the interphalangeal joints. So lumbricals, they maintain the extension of the interphalangeal joints for the second, third, fourth and fifth digits. So 4 lumbricals are there. Now we come to the muscles of the third layer of sole. So third layer of sole, you can remember, is the layer of small flexors for the thumb and the little finger. So the third layer consists of flexor hallucis brevis muscle, adductor hallucis muscle and flexor digiti minimi brevis muscle. So we have got the 2 flexors for the thumb and the little finger, and they are small, brevis. So we number these muscles as flexor hallucis brevis 1, adductor hallucis 2 and abductor digiti minimi, this flexor digiti minimi brevis 3. So it's the layer of flexors, small flexors of the thumb and little finger. So flexor hallucis brevis and flexor digiti minimi brevis, and the other muscle is adductor hallucis. Now let us take up these muscles one by one. We start with flexor hallucis brevis. It has got 2 limbs, medial and lateral limb. The medial limb is a continuation of the tendon of tibialis posterior, while the lateral limb arises from the cuboid bone. These 2 limbs meet to form the belly of the muscle, and then this belly divides into medial and lateral parts, which get inserted onto the sides of the base of proximal phalanx of big toe. So their action is going to be, when this muscle contracts, these tendons, they will cause flexion of the metatarsophalangeal joint of big toe. Second muscle is the adductor hallucis. As you can make out, it has got 2 heads, oblique head and transverse head. The oblique head arises from the bases of second, third and fourth metatarsal bone, and the transverse head has got no bony origin. It arises from the plantar ligaments of the third, fourth and fifth metatarsophalangeal joints, and the oblique and transverse heads, they unite with each other to get inserted onto the lateral aspect of the base of proximal phalanx of big toe. So the name is adductor hallucis. It causes adduction of the metatarsophalangeal joint of the big toe, proximal joint of the big toe. Third muscle is the flexor digiti minimi brevis. So this muscle arises from the base of the fifth metatarsal bone and this muscle gets inserted onto the lateral aspect of the proximal phalanx of the small toe along with the abductor digiti minimi muscle, which is the muscle of the first layer. So this will cause the flexion of the small toe. So these are the muscles of the third layer of the sole. The muscles of the fourth layer of the soles are the interossei. So we have got the dorsal interossei and the plantar interossei. If you remember the word pad, P-A-D, plantar interossei cause adduction. So dorsal interossei will cause abduction. Now in relation to the foot, there is an axis which passes through the second digit. So that axis along, it is around this axis that abduction and adduction takes place. Movement towards this axis will be called adduction, and movement away of the digit from this axis will be called abduction. So adduction will be movement towards the axis passing through the second digit, and abduction will be movement away from the axis passing through the second digit. Now plantar interossei are 3 and they are unipennate. So their bellies are there 3. So they are arising from the medial side of the corresponding metatarsal. You can make out here third metatarsal, fourth metatarsal, fifth metatarsal. So these, they come to the medial aspect of the proximal interphalangeal joint, and they medial aspect of the base of proximal interphalangeal joint, and they get inserted there and at the extensor expansion. Plantar interossei, when they contract, they will move the third, fourth and fifth digits towards the axis of the second finger. So they are called adductors of the third, fourth and fifth toes. Now these are the dorsal interossei. So dorsal interossei, they are 4. You can make out 1, 2, 3, 4. They are always numbered from medial to lateral side because this is the lower limb. So the first dorsal interossei arise from the adjacent sides of first and second metatarsal. Second arises from adjacent side of second and third metatarsal, and so on. So we have got 4 dorsal interossei muscle. They come to the metatarsophalangeal joint and they are getting inserted to the base of the proximal interphalangeal joint and the extensor expansion. One can make out in the figure the first dorsal interosseous muscle is getting inserted onto the medial side of the proximal phalanx. The second is getting inserted onto the lateral side of the proximal phalanx, and third is getting inserted onto the lateral side of the proximal phalanx. Fourth is getting inserted onto the lateral side of the proximal phalanx. Now what will be the action of these dorsal interossei? Well, plantar interossei, they cause adduction, so dorsal interossei will cause abduction. Now see the first and second dorsal interosseous muscle. So when it will contract, the first dorsal interosseous muscle will cause movement on this side. Second dorsal interosseous muscle will cause the movement of digit on this side. So movement either to this side or this side in relation to the axis passing through the second digit will be abduction. So first and second dorsal interossei, they cause abduction of the second digit because movement either medial or on lateral side in relation to axis passing through the second digit will be termed abduction. So similarly, the third dorsal interossei will cause the abduction of the third digit because it will move it away from the axis of the second digit, and the fourth dorsal interossei muscle will cause abduction of the fourth digit because it will move it away from the axis of the second digit. So you need to understand the anatomy to understand the action of the interossei muscles. And the fourth layer is the layer of the interossei, plantar interossei and dorsal interossei, 3 plantar interossei and 4 dorsal interossei, and they are adductors of the concerned digits. The fourth layer also contains the deepest muscle of the leg, and what was that? Tibialis posterior, and it also contains the superficial muscle of the lateral compartment, that is the peroneus longus. So remember this. Now we come to the nerve supply of these muscles of sole. So the tibial nerve divides into medial and lateral plantar nerves. The medial plantar nerve is the larger nerve. So we'll consider it first here. As you can make out, it supplies the skin of the medial aspect of the sole and the medial 3.5 digits shown in green here. It also supplies the muscles of the sole. So which muscles it supplies? It supplies the first 2 muscles of first layer. So what are they? Abductor hallucis and flexor digitorum brevis, and it also supplies the first muscle of third layer, flexor hallucis brevis. Remember, third layer is the layer of flexors of big toe and small toe. So it supplies the first muscle of the third layer, flexor hallucis brevis, along with the first lumbrical. So remember, medial plantar nerve has likes the number 1. So it supplies the first two muscles of the first layer of sole, first muscle of third layer along with the first lumbrical. Lateral plantar nerve has got a main trunk, and this main trunk supplies the third muscle of the first layer, which was that abductor digiti minimi. First layer is the layer of abductors of the thumb and the little finger. So the third muscle of first layer is abductor digiti minimi, and the main trunk also supplies the accessory muscle of second layer, that is the flexor digitorum accessorius. Then the main trunk divides into superficial branch and deep branch. The superficial branch likes last. So medial plantar nerve like the first one. This superficial branch supplies the last muscle of third layer, which was that third layer is the layer of small flexors of the big toe and small toe. So last muscle of the third layer was flexor digiti minimi brevis, and it supplies the last interossei, third plantar and fourth dorsal interossei. And the deep branch of the lateral plantar nerve supplies the remaining muscles. They are 9, 5 remaining interossei, 3 remaining lumbricals, and the adductor hallucis muscle. So this is one way of remembering the nerve supply of the muscles of the sole. So I thank you for being with me. Till the next time we meet, I end the topic of sole for today. Thank you. Have a nice day.